And welcome, students. We are going to start a new topic, which is web design. We're going to be working with Adobe Dreamweaver for this process. Now, you don't have to necessarily use Adobe Dreamweaver when you're making websites. There's a bunch of other apps out there, such as Notepad++, which does syntax highlighting. In fact, you can use just a simple text editor, such as just regular Notepad, to make a web page. But we're going to use Dreamweaver because it has a lot of tools that make it a lot easier for us to do, and plus, in a lot of the professional circles, a lot of times they will use Dreamweaver for things such as web development. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at Adobe Dreamweaver. This is Adobe Dreamweaver CC 2017. In here, I have a darker skin template applied. You can, of course, change this to your own liking. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to go ahead and go to File, New. If you get this window when you first load up Adobe Dreamweaver, this is what you'll be looking at. We want to make sure that we're under New Document, and our document type is HTML. Now, HTML is a type of document that we're going to be working with. Now, as we go through this set of lessons here, I've also have up for us a PowerPoint here where we're going to come in and define some of those common HTML terms. So in this lesson here for Introduction to Dreamweaver, let's go ahead and define that first term, HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Okay. Now these are the terms you're going to need to know simply because we have quizzes and stuff like that we're going to do. So you may want to take notes on some of these different things and how to construct some of these basic web pages. All right. Now, there are other formats you can see in here, such as CSS, JavaScript, and we will do a little bit of work with CSS in this class, but for the purpose of today's exercise, we're not going to worry about those yet. Now, what I want to point you to is this screen over here. Now, when you create a new document with HTML, you'll see that it asks for a title. You don't have to put the title in right away, but we're going to go ahead and place one in there. And we're just going to go ahead and call this Introduction to Dreamweaver. So there's my title. The doc type, if you click the drop down, you can see there's a bunch of different types of documents. That's because there's different standards available for how to create a document with HTML or XML. We're going to focus only, though, on HTML5, right, which is the current, most recent HTML standard. So we're going to focus on HTML5. You can, of course, later on we'll be making CSS files. You can go ahead and attach CSS files right off the get-go. We're not going to do that, and we're not going to worry about this here. This you would worry about if you took web design. You'll actually have to work with this, but all we need to do is fill out these two fields here and then tap Create. All right, now Dreamweaver will create by default a view for us. Now, if you don't have this view right here, like I do, where you have the code on this side and then the live view over here, you can easily change that. If I come up here to view, I can look at my view mode, and I should make sure that it is set to, you can toggle between live and design. I always like to leave it on live. Design view is kind of nice, but we're not really going to work with design view because live view kind of gives you a preview of how it would actually look in the actual web page. Additionally, under the split view, we want to make sure that we have it split. Now, you can do a horizontal split, which means that your code will be up here, your web page will be down here. However, not a fan of the horizontal split, simply because then I always have to scroll my web page up and down to really see what's going on. I'm more of a fan of the vertical split, simply because it allows me to see the code side by side. So as I make changes in the code, I can see how it's affecting the web page, and I don't necessarily have to scroll. Right. Additionally, under here, you can see we have the views of code and live, code design, and code. Code is really good if you're wanting to do multiple screens of code at once. So if let's say you want to do your HTML and CSS code, and you want to have them both up at the same time, that's really good for that. Code design will switch you between code view and design view. Design view is just that. You come right over here and you can design right here in the page. But again, design view is not the best way to do it because it doesn't get us to view the live view. Additionally, design view can be somewhat clunky. It's one of those things that's kind of been carried over from the past, so I'm always a fan of leaving it in code live view. All right, again, that's found here under the split menu. Now you can, of course, put the live view over here if you want, and the code over here. However you choose to arrange this is up to you. All right. Now, I'm always a fan of personally having the code on the left side, my design on the right side. That's just how I like it. You're welcome to change how that's arranged for you. All right. Now let's actually start looking at some of the different pieces that are in here in a HTML document. Now, we haven't really done that much yet with this web page. All right, all we've done so far is we've created a web page and there's nothing on it. So let's just go ahead and see what that web page would look like. So right now you can see it just has an untitled, and yours might say like untitled 1. I just have untitled 5 because I've been doing other documents here in Dreamweaver since I've last opened it. So I'm going to here, I'm going to File, going to do a Save. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate that to my Computer Apps 2 folder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that Web Design. Then I leave that as is. Now down here in the file name, I'm going to call that index. Now I have to make sure I'm inside my Web Design folder, so I am now, and index, and then right down here there's all these different file names. Don't worry about it. By default, if you do not specify what type of file it is, Dreamweaver will automatically make it into an HTML. So I'm just going to click Save. And you can see now up here it says index.html. So let's go ahead back to our notes real quick here and add in something on index. Okay? Index is the home page for a website. So we always name our home page with index.html. I should say as. Go. So there's just a couple of quick notes there. All right, continuing on. All right, if we want to view this web page right now, I can come right down here to the real-time preview. And if it doesn't work, there's other ways to get to it. All right. When I click on this, you should get an option that shows, preview in Chrome, preview in Internet Explorer, preview it however. There it goes. Sometimes it may have issues. So if I hit preview on device, I'm just going to pull this out so we can see a little better. All right. Right now, there's no issues. If you ever have issues, I'll show you the other way of doing it. But right here, you can see, boom, there's nothing on this web page, which is fine. We haven't done anything really with it, other than we have right up here, it says Introduction Dreamweaver. So we're okay. Now, if your web page doesn't load this way, so if it doesn't load this way, I'm going to come down here and go to my N drive, my Cat2 folder, go to Web Design, and you can see right here's that index.html file that I made earlier. I'm going to go ahead and if I can double click, or I can choose to open with whatever browser I want to use it with. Let's go ahead and choose Chrome. Right? And you can see it will load that file. Now the advantage of this file right here, if the live preview works, if you make changes in your code, it will update this automatically. If I don't have that working and I have to open it this way, in order for me to see any changes that happen here, I have to come in and click the refresh button for those changes to show up. And let's just go ahead and do a couple code changes just so you can see how that would show up. So let's go back to Dreamweaver for a second. And let's go right here between the two body tags. And I'm just going to go ahead and just type the word test. Okay. I'm going to save my index.html, and I can do that either by going to File, I'm going to go to Save, or I can go just and do a Control S. Now, one thing I highly recommend, because we're working with, we start getting into multiple files, just get in the habit of, instead of clicking Save, click Save All. All right, so now everything is saved. And let's go ahead and go back to our Introduction Dreamweaver files. All right, here is my live file, right here. And here is that file that's off my N drive. If I refresh these pages, you can see that the test will get generated. See, here it is. And now this one did not generate it. And like I said, that's because sometimes the preview button doesn't necessarily quite work as well as it should. So I always recommend actually going out to the actual file, clicking the refresh button when you get done with a bunch of changes, simply because sometimes preview doesn't work 100%. All right, so we're just going to use this file here. right? Now, you can see the Dreamweaver went ahead and changed test here to something else. So what we want to do is actually use it as some code. So let's save this. And we're going to talk about a couple of these different elements in here. And I'm using that term elements, and you may not know what that is, but we will slowly, over the course of working with Dreamweaver, define all these different pieces here. Right. So let's first off look at some of these different things here. I want to first define head and body, right? Because we don't really have definitions for those, right? And also this doc type HTML. So first, I'm just going to copy this, go back over to my PowerPoint, and doc type HTML, right? This is a standard used for HTML5 that identifies the document type as HTML. And that's really all it's used for. Like, do you have to have that up there? Not necessarily, but if you're following HTML5 standards, which we will be, this will be always in your code. Now, because we're using Dreamweaver, Dreamweaver automatically generates this, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay. Go ahead and make another slide here. And I'm just going to go ahead in here, and this is still part of our introduction lesson. And let's go ahead and define the next term, which is head. Okay. Well, the head is a HTML element that contains non-visible elements to the user, whereas the body is going to be HTML elements that contain content visible on the web page. So that's just kind of a general explanation. It's not precisely what it is, but for the purpose of this class, these two explanations will work fine. Right. Now, I also want to define what an element is, right? And I'll come back to this definition later on. I keep using the term element, so let me just go ahead and define that now. An element is simply a type of HTML code. Right? And we will come back and revisit this definition at a later point. Okay. Just for now, that's what you can identify an element as, is a type of HTML code. Right? So in here, in this nice little document right now, I have created a HTML element. I've gone and created a web page. And right now there's not really much on. Right? But we have actually created our first web page. So congratulations. That's all that's really to making a web page. After that, it's just putting stuff onto your web page. So making a web page is not hard. Putting content on it, that's where the chore comes in. So we're going to go ahead and at this point in time kind of stop the video. And when we come back, we'll actually do our first true HTML exercise. So I'll go ahead and pause it, and we'll see you next time.